My name is Nur Iman Dayana binti Ismail.
My name is Fatima binti Mazlan.
My name is Nur Shazana binti Nazlan.
My name is Nur Shana Suraya binti Kifli.
Now to the historic fires devastating Australia. Some 130 fires are burning right now, scorching more than 14 million acres of land. At least 25 people have been killed and more than 2,000 homes destroyed. Ginger is there in Bateman's Bay with the latest this morning.
As we all know, the 2019-2020 Australian bushfire season, known as the Black Summer, was a period of unusually intense bushfires throughout Australia. In June 2019, the Queensland Fire and Emergency Services Acting Director warned of the potential of an early start to the bushfire season, which normally starts in August. From September 2019 to March 2020, fires heavily impacted various regions of the state of New South Wales. In eastern and northeastern Victoria, large areas of forest burned out of control for 4 weeks before the fires emerged from the forest in late December. So here is the case study about Australia bushfires.
Fires, both man-made and natural, lead to the destruction of forests. Fire is the oldest tool and to clear land for cultivation and other purpose. And it's still commonly used in many countries. The concerns not only the added threat to biodiversity and other natural systems, but deforestation, in particular fire, is also a key emitter. With a large part of the country destroyed since fire season started at the end of July. All this has been worsened by extreme heat and drought, and many point to climate the change as a factor that makes natural disasters worse and worse. The deadly bushfires of Australia began in September 2019 and have been blazing ever since. The prolonged drought that started in 2017 has made this year's bushfire season more destructive than ever. Hot and windy conditions are expected to return to several parts of New South Wales this weekend and the Australia Capital Territory (ACT). Authorities have decided a state of emergency as a major bushfires reached south of Canberra. Every state and territory in Australia has had a fire this summer, and things got worse quickly until the rains managed to control many of the worst fires in February 2020. Hundreds had to flee to the coast in fear of the bushfires. The army was sent to help as the flames ravaged of the countryside during the worst bushfire season in the history. Although fires can occur all year round, Australia is going through a fire season during the warmer months since the hot during weather and wind made it easy for flames to spread. The combination of 40 Celsius temperature and strong winds caused the fires to spread. Scientists have said that there is no doubt man-made global warming was play a significant role in feeding with fires. The Australia bushfire season 2019 and 20, known colloquially as the Black Summer, was a time of exceptionally severe bushfires in Australia. There has been discussion about the underlying cause of fire intensity and the size, including the position of fire management practices and climate change, which received substantial international attention at the height of the crisis. Pools visiting areas affected by fire received negative reactions, notably from Prime Minister Scott Morrison.
This is how it looks like during the bushfire incident in Australia. As the incident happened in Australia, it had affected animals' habitat and shelter. We know that Australia is popular with koalas and kangaroo. It is one of the animals that are affected by this bushfire incident. Koalas are well known with large round head, big furry ears, and big black nose. Their fur is usually grey-brown, is colored with white fur on the chest and the bottom. Koalas are wild animals. They prefer to have no contact at all with humans. Koalas experience stress when humans approach them too close. The kangaroo has strong hind leg, large feet, and long muscular tail to keep it in motion in balance. It is the only large animal whose primary means of locomotion is hopping. From this incident, it is estimated the number of fire murderer animals range from hundreds of millions to over 1 billion. Volunteers and teams from Australia's National Park and Wildlife Service have done their best to support some of the kangaroos, birds, koalas, and lizards that could be rescued and treated.
Adelaide Wildlife Rescue carries a rescued koala at a burning forest near Cape Borda in Kangaroo Island on 7 January 2020. Kangaroo is seen in bushland surrounded by smoke haze. The doctors treat a koala named Sharni from Crowdy Bay National Park for burns at the Koala Hospital on 29 November 2019. The dead koalas were found in the forest after the bushfire.
After the bushfire incident in Australia, about 2,000 pounds of vegetable, which is carrots and sweet potatoes, are being dropped across Australia to help out hungry wallabies at National Park. Known as Operation Raub Wallaby, the food drops are part of a larger recovery effort. The wildfires that have ravaged the country continue to burn, and wildlife are left looking for any bit of relief they can find. Ecologists feel 1 billion animals have died as a result of the fires.
So, what actually happens? The article explained that New South Wales is in the worst heat state. Fire has affected 5 million hectares, destroying more than 2,000 houses and forcing thousands of people to seek shelter elsewhere. More than 1,600 firefighters are currently working to slow the spread of the fires and shore up containment lines. Here's a picture of the major bushfires, and from the picture, you can see that fires have increases near the Australian capital, Canberra, for weeks. At one stage, shutting the city's airport as flames approach the perimeter. Fears are growing that the rising temperatures and strong winds could make the fire uncontrollable. But the New South Wales Rural Fire Service says it expects most of the flames to spread southeast. The state of emergency declared in Canberra gives extra power and resources to fire authorities, allowing them to force evacuation if necessary. The military has sent troops, ships, and aircraft to the region to help relocation and firefighting efforts. 3 people, including 1 firefighter, have died as a result of the fires. Not to forget, South Australia has also suffered. 2 people and an estimated 25,000 koalas were killed when flames devastated Kangaroo Island in the state of South Australia on 9 January. As you can see, this is the extent of damage to the island. The island is renowned for its unique mix of animal species, and there are fears it may never recover. Tens of thousands of farm animals, mainly sheep, were also killed in the fire on the island. More than 1 billion mammals, birds, and reptiles likely lost their lives in the blaze. According to one estimate from the University of Sydney, around 25,000 koalas were feared dead on Kangaroo Island. 8,000 koalas, a third of all the koalas in New South Wales, are believed to have perished, and about 30% of the koalas' habitat has also been wiped out. The devastation only adds to existing pressures on Australia's unique ecosystems. the continent is home to 24 species that are not found anywhere else. The region also has the highest rate of native mammals becoming extinct over the past 200 years. The Department of Agriculture, Water and the Environment published a list on February 11 of the 113 animal species, including the platypus, that most urgently need help following the fires. And lastly, the smoke became another disaster. On January 1st, Australia's capital recorded the worst pollution it's ever seen, with an air quality index 23 times higher than what's considered hazardous. And if you ever wonder how fast is the fire speed, how fast is the fire spread, it can take to 14 mph faster than average person and forest fire. This is why grass or bushfire is very dangerous and bad for the country.
And then, we will be discussing about the impacts of Australian bushfires. The first one we have society impacts. As we can see, being a fireman is naturally a dangerous career, especially when confronted with a fire like Australian bushfires. But with the better training, they can minimize the risk. We also should not forget that most people fighting rural fires are volunteers who, out of sense of community spirit, take on this task. Why should we expose them to the enormous risks that heavy fuel fires entail? Will we not owe them the duty of keeping them as safe as we can? Burning down fuel is the only practical way of doing so. More than that, not only do fires cause physical harm, but many people suffer mental trauma from the experience of emergency evacuation and loss of homes, pets, belongings, livestock and other survival sources. Some communities were unable to quickly evacuate when lost power meant that fuel stations were not working that helped people stuck in high-risk areas.
Everything's just gone. We've got nothing. Memories. Maybe find a shovel or something in the shed or something, but that's about all we'll have.
Many people were forced to be on beaches to seek protection, sheltering kids overnight while experiencing unprecedented firestorms. Such experiences may have lifelong effects on mental health in the communities affected. And then, intense bushfires cause the death of large numbers of native animals and insects that cannot escape the flames by incineration or smoke suffocation. Microsites that do not burn under low-intensity burns are incinerated, and therefore no refuge areas are left for flora and fauna sensitive to fire. Any animals that can take shelter in holes in the ground or in logs are generally lost easily after a bushfire since they no longer have any covers from predators. Almost all species on the list had lost at least 30% of their habitat. Koalas and wallabies, as well as species of birds, fish, frogs are among those most in need of help, the experts say. Previously, researchers had predicted that more than 1 billion animals may have died in the fires.
Koalas in need of care, and flying foxes pushed out of their habitat.
What do we have here?
So this is a redneck wallaby.
Mills is caring for 2 wallabies, and a pair of joeys just arrived today.
What would you?
Then we move to economic impacts. As we can see from all over TV shows, newspaper and more, it is obvious that the infrastructure was damaged and the impacts extended to industries such as agriculture and tourism. During periods of excessive air pollution levels, some companies and institutions have been forced to close their doors.
In this time of despair and sadness and this tragic failure of the political process, however, some glimmers of hope have emerged. As a nation, we have learned 3 strong lessons, ethical lessons, that hopefully will help support a future, more constructive set of policies. The first lesson is the most positive. It is that despite government neglect, the strength and resilience of communities remains intact. The heroism of voluntary firefighters, the countless stories of generosity, kindness and love have inspired all of us. We have watched with gratitude and admiration as overseas firefighters, mainly from the United States, have arrived on our shores and moved resolutely to take up posts in disaster areas. Shopkeepers have opened their doors to victims in country areas, and passersby have donated whatever skills they have to provide care for those suffering around them. The second lesson is that we need to trust those with genuine expertise and knowledge. Scientists have been warning the Australian people about the mounting dangers of climate change for nearly 50 years. Australia must always be prepared of the climate change. Lastly, how to prevent or how to solve this problem. As we all know, Australia has always had bushfires. With warming temperature, Australia will face longer fire seasons. To reduce future damage, governments at all levels must act. First, areas of focus should include enhancing early warning systems and fire prediction capabilities. Second, launching public awareness campaigns on the dangers posed by climate-fueled bushfires and necessary prevention measures. Third, conducting more controlled burns and developing more strengthened building codes that address climate risks. Next, at the state and local levels, communities need to professionalize their firefighting capabilities. They should invest and improve training that educates firefighters and local leaders about the changing characteristics of bushfires. And once the fire season subsides, states should oversee how and where rebuilding occurs, including restricting redevelopment of particularly fire-prone areas. Finally, to reduce the escalating threats from climate change, Australia, the world's largest exporter of coal, should cut their carbon footprints. In doing so, the countries can play leadership roles to keep global temperatures from rising to unmanageable, dangerous levels.